Hi, everyone. I'm Vladimir Dutip. We are watching all the news happening in the United States and around the world. Check out these screens behind me. These are feeds coming into the CBS News Broadcast Center from all of our stations and affiliates around the country. If it's happening out there, we're going to bring it to you live right here. Let's begin. Hundreds of structures destroyed, thousands of acres torched as wind fuels a raging wildfire in California. But it's not just the West Coast that's of concern today. There's a little bit of the Northeast facing its own fiery conditions. Plus, the first glimpse at President-elect Donald Trump's incoming administration, what we know about his newly named chief of staff, the first woman ever to hold that position. And anti-Semitic rioters attacked Israeli fans after a soccer game in Amsterdam, when we're learning about the violent incident and how both the Netherlands and Israel are responding. This is CBS News 24/7. A raging wildfire has already destroyed more than 200 homes in Southern California. About 1,400 people are under evacuation orders right now as crews race to battle the flames for a second day. Governor Gavin Newsom toured some of the damage in Camarillo Heights yesterday, talking with firefighters and sheriff's officials. He declared a state of emergency in Ventura County to open up federal funding and resources. CBS News correspondent Jonathan Vigliotti has been on the scene since yesterday for us, and he joins me now to talk about it. So, Jonathan, break down the challenges that the crews are up against right now.
Yeah, Vlad, good morning to you. So this is a wind-driven event. The wind continues to be a concern. It has calmed down significantly in neighborhoods like this where it caused so much destruction over the past few days. But the National Weather Service is warning of extreme wind in higher elevations. And unfortunately, that's where this fire continues to explode. You've got crews there, mainly ground crews, trekking in on foot. And in terms of just how exhausting this work is, I want you to consider the packs and the gear that they have, in some cases weighing 40 to 50 pounds, incredibly tiring. The good news, though, with the wind calming down a little bit, you now have air tankers that we are being told are going to take to the air, so that will help with containment. Already, we are seeing some significant progress. Overnight, 5% contained. Officials just gave an update saying it's now 7% contained. We expect that trend to continue to increase as the day and the days go on. Officials saying that it will take several days at least to battle this fire, Vlad.
So, Jonathan, tell us from what you saw yesterday to what you're seeing this morning. Give us a sense of that scope of devastation.
I mean, really an incredible amount of destruction. We actually arrived here on Wednesday afternoon as the fire was ripping through neighborhoods like this. We saw crews as they were overwhelmed by those flames. We saw the flames actually jump from one roof to another. You could see now clearly the aftermath of that blowtorch effect. This is just one of more than 200 homes that have either been destroyed or damaged. We're talking neighborhood after neighborhood, in some cases where we have been, that have been leveled. You have 1,400 people that are under a mandatory evacuation. Many of them, as you can imagine, worried about what they will return home to. Unfortunately, for so many, they will be returning home to scenes like this. I spoke with one couple yesterday in their 80s. They actually chose to stay put to try to fight the fire themselves until they were forced to flee. And unfortunately, they've returned back to find very little left of their homes. As we talk about crews focused on the mountaintop where this fire is burning out of control, there are concerns of hot spots that still exist in this neighborhood. In fact, just about 30 minutes ago, we had a fire crew, I would say about 10 feet away from us, responding to a hot spot that we didn't even recognize. So that threat still exists. There is a concern that even a little bit of a gust could pick up those hot spots and possibly ignite other homes, Vlad.
All right, Jonathan Vigliotti, stay safe out there. We appreciate your reporting, my friend. Thank you. Well, it's not just the West Coast battling fiery conditions. Parts of the Northeast are under red flag warnings because of weeks of dry weather and some strong wind gusts. Several brush fires in New Jersey have scorched hundreds of acres of land, shut down roads, and, of course, that's impacting air quality. CBS News New York reporter Elijah Westbrook has the very latest.
Good morning. Well, at this hour, we are reporting from the Fort Tryon section of Upper Manhattan, where if you see right across the Hudson River, you're looking at a rather thick plume of white smoke that's billowing from the Englewood Cliffs neighborhood of New Jersey. This fire has been burning for several hours at this point, and you can see it's blowing more so in the northeast direction of where we are standing. Our residents, not only in this part of Upper Manhattan, but people who live in areas, let's say University Heights and Morris Heights in the Bronx, say that they can smell and see the smoke blowing at this time. Now, if we have all this queued up, we have video to show you of a trail and then a line, if you will, of flames scorching the steep hills of Englewood Cliffs. We're not seeing any homes or forms of infrastructure that's in the direct path of the flames, so that is the silver lining behind this ongoing matter, but you can certainly smell it, and all of what you're watching could cause air quality issues as the day progresses. Now, we are aware of a second fire that was once scorching that area of the Palisades about a half-mile north. From what we can see, it's not as big, but something worth noting as we continue to report on this ongoing brush fire. Now, we do want to mention that the FDNY has been responding to some calls regarding odors of smoke which may or may not be attributed to the fires we're seeing in New Jersey. Of course, we're going to continue to stay here at the scene and bring you the very latest. In the meantime, we're reporting here from Upper Manhattan. I'm Elijah Westbrook, CBS News, New York.
All right, Elijah, thank you very much. Let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with the first look at the national forecast. All right, Grant, what are you watching right now?
I'll tell you, watching the corners of the U.S., Vlad, we were just talking about Southern California and the fires there. Yes, some improved conditions there, but still the concerns up into the hills and into the higher elevations for those breezy conditions that could continue to fuel some of the fires that are ongoing out there. So several counties underneath those red flag warnings. But then, like I said, the corners of the U.S., the southwestern corner, not a horrible drought situation, more so back into western Arizona and southern Nevada. But the drought just continues to worsen in the Northeast. You heard there reports out of New Jersey, a lot of fires really sparking over the last several days due to this spreading drought. In fact, now extreme drought conditions in portions of southern and eastern New Jersey, and that's just going to continue to grow until there's some significant rainfall. And with the dry conditions all across the Northeast, and then dry air moving in along with breezy conditions, there's a pretty high threat for fire danger. You can see several states now underneath those red flag warnings because of the gusty conditions, the dry conditions on the ground, the dry air moves in. All of those conditions really just prime for not fires just starting, but spreading pretty rapidly as we go throughout, especially this afternoon. So an elevated risk for fire across these areas today, but we could even see some spots of critical fire. And that's going to continue not just through today, but even with the dry conditions, Vlad, into the weekend. We could see ongoing fire concerns through Saturday. Rain, though, arrives on Sunday. We'll talk more about that in just a bit. Back to you.
All right. Looking forward to that, Grant. Thank you very much. All right. Let's talk about Donald Trump, the president-elect. Is still looking to see some ballots being counted in some states. CBS News has now projected that Trump has won the state of Nevada. It is his first time winning that state. He lost it back in 2016 and back in 2020. Meanwhile, Trump has chosen his campaign's co-chair, Susie Wiles, to be his chief of staff when he is inaugurated in January. She will be the first woman ever to hold that position. I want to bring in CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns for the very latest. So, Caitlin, while you were covering the Trump campaign throughout this candidacy period, you probably had interactions with Susie Wiles. She's known, I mean, she's credited for helping Trump get it over the finish line. But what are her qualifications for dealing with Washington, which is a completely different beast?
Hey, Vlad, good to see you. Yes, Susie Wiles has been kind of the center of this campaign, but running it from behind the scenes. She is very reluctant to seek the spotlight. And those of us who have talked with her over the course of the campaign, she's very much an operator and someone who can keep Donald Trump on track, even when he goes off message. And I think what's important to know about her is that she is revered by campaign staffers. I mean, yesterday and last night, talking to campaign staffers, they were just absolutely ecstatic about this pick. And there is a sense that she is going to set a tone, that this administration is coming in with what they see as a mandate, which is, has evidence of that. Obviously, he's poised to win every battleground state. He's on track to win the popular vote first time that he's been able to do that in these campaigns. And so they believe they have a mandate for governing. And there is going to be, Susie Wiles will be at the center of that. And there will be a lot of confidence among the staff about this direction. But thinking about her, she is a Florida operative. She was instrumental in several big Florida campaigns. She is based here, so she was going to be moving to Washington, which will be different. But when you think of the role of chief of staff, and especially a chief of staff to this kind of president that Donald Trump is, having someone that he trusts is very important. There is a premium on that trust, that loyalty, but also someone who can run a tight ship. If you think about this campaign, there were no big campaign shakeups. Even when the former president, now president-elect, frequently went off message, including in those final days, this was a campaign that did, behind the scenes at least, remain steady and confident in what their polling was telling them, confident in what what they were seeing out in the field, and what the fundamental dynamics of this race were.
So, Kaylin, what are you hearing about some of the other potential cabinet picks?
Yeah, so here in West Palm Beach, this is kind of the center of the political universe. Donald Trump is just behind us at his resort in Mar-a-Lago taking lots of phone calls, and this is a transition team that is well underway. We've talked about kind of who's leading that effort, but there are some names that are starting to be talked about for key positions, and CBS News has learned that for the position of Secretary of State, there are some names being touted around. Marco Rubio, the senator from Florida, a top surrogate for this campaign. Of course, he is a member of the Foreign Relations Committee, being considered perhaps for Secretary of State. So we'll keep an eye on that. He has already been vetted, of course, because he was one of the vice presidential contenders.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns for us. Thank you, Caitlin. Appreciate it as always. Let's talk about some ballots in key congressional races that are still being counted in some states. Nevada Senate race is still a toss-up. Incumbent Jackie Rosen, a Democrat, hopes to hold on to her seat. It is just one of 4 Senate races that CBS News has still not projected a winner in. Neither party has secured control of the House of Representatives yet. Right now, CBS News classifies it as leaning Republican. There are 215 seats so far. The GOP needs just 3 more. You need that magic number of 218 to control the House. Meanwhile, in a major blow to the Biden administration, a judge has struck down a program that would offer legal status to undocumented immigrants married to U.S. citizens. The judge, who was appointed by President-elect Trump, says the program violates U.S. immigration law. CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joins us now to talk more about this. Morning, Weijia. So explain this ruling and who exactly is impacted by it and what you're hearing from the Biden administration about it.
Oh, good morning, Vlad. So this is part of the Biden administration's program that they proposed called Keeping Families Together. And basically, if you're an undocumented person married to an American citizen, this plan would have given work permits and protections from deportations to those people if they had lived in the U.S. for at least 10 years without committing a serious crime. And most importantly, if this had gone through, the policy would allow these immigrants to apply for permanent residency, also known as a green card. Now, here's the thing. If you're undocumented in this country right now, you can apply for a green card, but you have to leave first, go back to your original country, and then apply for reentry and come back. And that is what this program was trying to cut out for those immigrants who had been here for 10 years or longer and married to an American citizen. But as you mentioned, Vlad, this was struck down by a judge, a U.S. District Court judge, who we should say was appointed by President-elect Donald Trump. As for what the Biden administration is saying, nothing. We haven't heard from the White House, and we haven't heard from the Department of Homeland Security, even though we have asked multiple times. And of course, the Justice Department can appeal this ruling, but frankly, Vlad, with a Trump administration 2.0, it's easy to imagine how all of that would get caught up in court and probably go nowhere once the new administration comes in.
Yeah, and as you know, nobody knows better than you. Immigration was, of course, at the heart of this election. So how will, thinking about the next couple of months, how is the Biden team thinking about immigration before the president leaves office?
Well, there's really little that the president can do in terms of executive order. And of course, you know, Congress is about to be upheaved as well. So I think, you know, there's not much in terms of action that the president can take. This was one way that he was trying to do something before he left office. And so, you know, this is not something that they can do much on. They continue to use the same messaging, which is that they tried and they failed, that they were so close, even with a bipartisan group of lawmakers. And so it looks like, you know, the ball really is going to be in the Trump administration's court in terms of border security. And it wasn't just the economy that people voted on, it was the border. And so the overwhelming majority of Americans liked what Donald Trump had to say about the border and security better than what Harris was saying. And so he has promised mass deportations. He has also said there's no price tag on it. He's willing to pour money into that. So we have to see how that unravels in just a few months, Vlad.
We'll be watching. All right, Ouija, thank you very much. Have a nice weekend.
You too, thanks.
Dozens of arrests and several people hospitalized after rioters attack Israeli soccer fans following a match in Amsterdam. Coming up, what we know about the violent incidents and the ongoing investigation. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Israeli soccer fans were attacked in the Netherlands overnight at multiple locations in Amsterdam. At least 62 people have been arrested and 5 people were hospitalized. One fan spoke to a reporter in the aftermath. Listen.
The Dutch seller told us, be careful because there is a lot of Muslim attacks, and they offer us maybe a cab, maybe to ride in the restaurant until all of this will be over. In the end, we rejected his offer because the hotel was 40 minutes by walk, and we went to our hotel and we saw a lot of demonstrations, a lot of people running. It was really terrifying. It was terrifying.
CBS News correspondent Tina Kraus has the very latest on the situation.
Soccer celebrations in the Netherlands' capital city turned to chaos Thursday night.
For the children. I'll give you my money. Free Palestine now!
This unverified social media video claims to be from Amsterdam, showing an Israeli soccer fan cowering on the ground, apparently terrorized. His attacker shouting, "For the kids, free Palestine." Police say anti-Semitic rioters actively sought out Israeli supporters to attack and assault them, sending several to the hospital. Authorities made dozens of arrests after a soccer game between a visiting Israeli team and a local club. But witnesses say there was violence before the game, too, and that police were too slow on the scene.
They came really late.
Came too late.
Clashes broke out despite a ban on a pro-Palestinian demonstration near the soccer stadium, as Amsterdam's mayor feared hostilities would flare up between protesters and supporters of the Israeli club. Before the game, pro-Israel supporters chanted "Death to the Arabs." Others pulled down a Palestinian flag. The Dutch Prime Minister condemned the attacks on Israeli fans, calling them scandalous and reprehensible. Israel's Prime Minister is demanding the Dutch government take vigorous and swift action against those involved. Tina Kraus, CBS News.
Let's go to Argentina now, where 3 people have been charged in connection with the death of Liam Payne. The charges came 1 month after the former One Direction singer fell off his balcony in his hotel in Buenos Aires. Authorities say one person who allegedly spent every day with Payne in Argentina has been charged, with 2 other people suspected of supplying Payne with drugs. It is day 2 of deliberations in the trial of the man accused of murdering 2 teenagers in Indiana. 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Liberty German vanished during an afternoon hike near their hometown of Delphi back in February 2017. Carroll County prosecutor says 52-year-old Richard Allen was captured on video near where they were last seen. The girls were found dead the next day. Allen has pleaded not guilty. CBS News correspondent Ian Lee has more from Delphi, and he joins me now to discuss. Ian, this was a terrible story when the news first broke. Just give us some of the flavor from the trial. What are some of the key moments that you've been able to see?
Oh, Vlad, there's been a number of points put out by the prosecution saying what they say shows that Richard Allen was guilty of this. They point to the first being a bullet. They say an unspent bullet was found at the crime scene, and they say that it could have been from a gun owned by Richard Allen. They also point to that video, that grainy photo. They say that that shows that it was Richard Allen. That was taken by the girls just before the murder. And then finally, and this is crucial, a confession. They say in a phone call from Richard Allen to his wife, he admits to murdering the girls. Now, the defense has been trying to punch holes in the prosecution's case. First, with that confession. They said that was done after months in solitary confinement. According to Indiana law, a person can only be in solitary confinement for up to 30 days. Now, a psychiatrist and expert says that anyone would be delirious after months in solitary confinement. Also pointing to the fact with that bullet, they brought in their own expert that says that bullet may not necessarily been from Richard Allen's guns, that the other expert was kind of comparing apples and oranges. And also they pointed to the fact that there's no DNA evidence, there's no fingerprints, and that the prosecution's timeline really doesn't match up. Now, the jury is deliberating, and if found guilty, Richard Allen could face up to 130 years in prison.
So, Ian, let me ask you how folks in the community are dealing with this high-profile case.
Oh, Vlad, this really rocked this community of about 3,000 people. Talking to folks here, there is still a sense of shock that something like this could happen. First and foremost, people here want justice for Abby and Libby. They believe that, their crime cannot go unsolved, especially just by how gruesome it is. But there are people who are a bit divided over whether he is guilty or not. They're listening to the evidence, and, there is some doubt that the defense is able to put in to the prosecution's case. But nonetheless, just looking around, you have signs over here. People are gathering outside the courthouse, waiting for this verdict, hoping that there is some sort of justice, Vlad.
All right, Ian Lee reporting. Thank you very much, Ian. Appreciate it. South Carolina residents are being warned to keep their doors and windows closed after dozens of monkeys broke loose from a research lab. How the primates escaped, that's coming up next. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Here's a look at some of the top stories we're following for you this morning. San Francisco Mayor London Breed conceded her re-election race to philanthropist and heir to the Levi Strauss fortune. Daniel Lurie will take her place in the new year. Breed made history 6 years ago when she became the city's first black female mayor. A 13-year-old boy is under arrest for allegedly trying to enter an elementary school with a rifle. Police in Kenosha, Wisconsin credit the school staff with saving lives by stopping the teen when he arrived at the school yesterday with suspicious bags. The boy fled into the neighborhood and was eventually caught. Investigators say he also conducted multiple internet searches related to school shootings. And it's monkey mayhem in Yemassee, South Carolina. 43 primates from a research facility on Wednesday escaped. Residents near the Alpha Genesis lab are being warned to lock their doors and windows as authorities try to recapture the primates. The research lab says the monkeys broke loose after a worker did not fully secure an enclosure. This isn't the first time the facility had fugitive animals. Primates reportedly escaped from that same lab in 2014 and 2016. These are all juveniles. They're all females. Run, girls, run. Keep running. Okay, the Justice Department and the FBI, along with the FCC, have teamed up to investigate a series of vile and racist text messages that you can partially see here on your screen. The anonymous texts were sent to black people in more than half a dozen states. Men, women, and even middle school students started receiving them shortly after the election. Let's bring in Rona Tarrant. She's an executive editor of CBS News Confirmed Team. That is a team that looks to work to understand misinformation and share what is correct out there. And they do all sorts of investigations and things just like this. So, Rona, tell me a little bit more about these texts, where they came from, and who's been getting them.
So the FBI is saying that it's in touch with the Justice Department, but we're also hearing from middle schools, high schools, universities, and 2 attorneys general saying they're also looking into these text messages. So we know they're pretty widespread. Now, just from our own reporting yesterday, we identified people in more than half a dozen states who said they had received these messages. Now, they were all Black Americans. They reported receiving almost identical language in the text as well. And what we also know is that these messages, they address people by name and also mention their locations.
So the number of agencies now investigating these text messages and its origins have grown. Tell us more about what the authorities are trying to find.
Well, what we know from our own reporting is we actually gathered a list of these numbers that have been sent, these messages have been sent from. We tracked them back to at least 25 different states. Now, we called them afterwards, and most of them had been disconnected by the time we got through to them. But we did manage to get through to a few that had used an anonymous texting service. So authorities are going to be working with those companies to try to track back who actually sent these messages. We also got through to one person who had sent one of these messages. They told us it was a prank before they hung up.
That's interesting. Just can you describe for our viewers, Rona, how you go about doing this? Because I think that's the key here, which is that a lot of people receive things on their devices. They receive things in email. And for some Americans who are not savvy in the ways of technology, they think that they're true.
Right, so a lot of people received these on their messages yesterday. They posted about them on social media. And what our team did was we actually just gathered a list of these phone numbers and we just started calling them. So what we know is they came from several different places and we were actually able to see the area codes that they came from as well. We also tracked people down on social media who reported receiving them. We confirmed where they were from, and we also talked to officials across the country. And what it tells us is this is actually a fairly widespread issue. People who received them thought maybe it's just me. What we know is it was sent to several people all around yesterday, started in the afternoon and really picked up towards the evening. So this is definitely a widespread issue across the country.
All right, Rona Tarrant for us this morning. Rona, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, Russian President Vladimir Putin has congratulated Donald Trump on his election victory, calling him courageous. In his first public remarks on the U.S. election, Putin also said that Trump's claim that he can help end the war in Ukraine, quote, deserves attention. This comes as the war in Ukraine rages on. Our MTS Tayeb has more from Kyiv.
Well, since Donald Trump's decisive election win this week, Russia has really ramped up its strikes across Ukraine. Overnight, it launched a barrage of drones and missiles, killing one civilian and wounding more than 30 people. In the eastern city of Kharkiv, several of the injured were seen being pulled from the wreckage of damaged buildings, some even crying out in pain. Now, according to the Ukrainian Air Force, in total, Russia launched at least 92 drones and 5 missiles at 12 Ukrainian regions. 62 of the drones and 4 of the missiles were down by Ukrainian air defense systems. But Kyiv's ability to thwart Moscow's attacks are increasingly under question following President-elect Donald Trump's decisive win this week. The Biden administration is reportedly already trying to, quote, Trump-proof around $9 billion in congressional-approved security assistance that has already been committed to Ukraine. Now, CBS News has spoken with Olha Kashinchka, a Kyiv resident who fled Europe with her daughter and left her son and husband behind. On a brief visit home, she told our team most Ukrainians were, quote, pinning their hopes on a Kamala Harris win, and that she feels anxious about the nation's future. But she told us she realizes that Ukrainians must fight for their right to freedom, and she said to win this war on their own. Back to you.
All right, MTS, thank you very much. A massive snowstorm has called schools to close in the Denver area today, and the city saw its first measurable snowfall of the season yesterday as a winter storm made its way across that state. Forecasts are predicting up to 10 additional inches overnight. Several major roadways closed amid the winter storm warning, including I-70 near Denver, which is all the way up to the Kansas border. As we mentioned earlier, a fast-moving wildfire is raging in Southern California and forcing thousands of residents to flee their homes. Let's toss it over to our CBS News Los Angeles station, who just spoke with a firefighter battling those flames. Let's listen.
Winds pick up. So we have miles and miles of hand line to put in, areas to cool down to really make it safe so that that fire stays small or within its current perimeter. And we also want to get people back home. We're trying to work really hard around the homes. Repopulation is such a big deal for us, and that's what we're focused on right now.
You know, I know you're about 2 days into this. The crew is working just so incredibly hard. Can you tell us how they're doing? Are there reports of any injuries? Are people okay?
You know, the firefighters are a really resilient bunch. It's been a long summer. We've been fortunate that we haven't seen as bad of a year as some others, but it's been active. So a lot of these folks have been out on the line a lot. We were ready for this firefight. We have over 2,400 firefighters out here, and this is what we signed up for. This is what we want to do. We want to be helping these communities. We love being out here. We're really passionate about it, and we're bringing everybody together and really just trying to take care of this community now. Make sure they're set up for success, and that when we walk away, that this fire stays out and that we can get them back in their communities.
Yeah, when you talk about the fire staying out and the fire still being active, even though we're not seeing these huge flames like we saw when it first broke out a couple of days ago, explain how that works and what the crews are doing right now.
Yeah, certainly. So the hottest part of the fires are usually right around the perimeter, the edge of the fires. That's the area that we focus on. Those are the areas that will continue to smolder. As the red flags die out, we're very excited about that part, but we're going to start to see that onshore wind come back. That's going to push fire in a direction where it hasn't really been pushed in the last couple of days, really since the fire started. That creates new challenges for us, the potential for spots to pick up and go into fuels that weren't a problem the last 2 days could become a problem when we get that onshore breeze. And really just having that much open area where we still have smoldering stuff, you could see how it's very easy for the wind to pick up and throw. All it takes is one ember going across into something receptive like dry grass, and that fire's back off and running.
Well, and that's really the threat going forward here with this fire. But I think it's, we're right in the middle.
All right, you're watching our colleagues at KCAL in Los Angeles, the CBS station there, covering those raging wildfires that are forcing thousands of people to evacuate. Let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore. He's got another look at the national forecast. Grant.
Hey, Vlad, before you were talking about the fires, you were talking about the snow across portions of southern Colorado and northern New Mexico. Believe it or not, those two weather systems are actually connected. You've got a low-pressure system producing the snow in the central and southern Rockies. The high-pressure system to the north and west is actually what's been fueling the winds that have been going into the Santa Ana there and producing those dry, windy conditions. That low-pressure system is now beginning to exit to the north and east, which is loosening that pressure gradient, allowing those winds to at least relax a little bit. Still gusty conditions up in the higher elevations, which is where we have those red flag warnings in Southern California today. But again, conditions are at least a little bit better than yesterday. Meanwhile, we've got an ongoing blizzard in some places, but on the warm side of this storm system, you've got a threat for severe weather today. Places across Dallas and the Metroplex will have to watch out for some gusty winds, potentially damaging winds, and maybe some tornadoes later on this afternoon, in addition to the heavy rain. And then you've got the snow side of this. Blizzard warnings and effects of northern New Mexico, and then winter storm warnings ongoing in southeastern Colorado. But that's on top of the incredible amounts of snow that have already fallen. Fort Garland, Colorado has picked up at least 40 inches of snow since Tuesday, and it continues to snow there. Denver has seen 9 inches of snow at last check. And again, this snow continues to fall. Some places could still pick up an additional 6 to 12 inches of snow in the higher elevations before finally the snow will begin to clear out through the day on Saturday. Meanwhile, across the rest of the country, you've got relatively pleasant and seasonable, if not warmer than normal conditions across the northern tier and Midwestern states. And again, in the Northeast today, Vlad, watching for that threat for fire danger with breezy and dry conditions. Back to you.
All right, Grant, thank you very much. A potential transit strike looms over Philadelphia. Everything we know about the ongoing negotiations between SEPTA, which is the transit authority in that city, and a major transport union. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Philadelphia's transit system is operational today as the union has now extended its contract negotiations. The TWU is still in talks with SEPTA despite the workers' contract expiring at midnight. CBS News Philadelphia reporter Ray Strickland is following the talks, and he joins me now to talk about them. So, Ray, what are some of the key sticking points that are still being worked out?
Good morning to you, Vlad. Well, I'll start with this first because many people in Philadelphia woke up today nervous, anxious, likely checking their phones over concerns they may not have a ride to work or school. But luckily, as you said, SEPTA services will continue throughout the day as the transit agency and the union try to work out new details for a contract. Now, as we said before, their O1 expired last night, setting the stage for a potential strike that could happen soon if they can't come to an agreement. Now, I'm told by a source close to these negotiations that SEPTA and the Transport Workers Local 234, are going to be back at the bargaining table at 2 p.m. today here at the Wyndham Hotel in Old City, Philadelphia. Both sides are saying that they are determined to get a deal done, understanding the urgency of this situation. Hundreds of thousands of people rely on SEPTA, Philadelphia School District students, city workers, and many more. But right now, the sides seem far apart on some key issues such as pay, safety, and also benefits. The union is proposing a one-year contract with a 10% increase in pay, but SEPTA offered union workers no wage increase, but instead a $1,000 bonus in exchange for concessions on health care costs. SEPTA says its financial troubles are making negotiations difficult, but both sides remain hopeful a deal will get done.
All right, Ray Strickland, thank you very much. Appreciate it. A highway worker just narrowly avoided being hit by a truck in an active work area, and the incident was caught on camera. That dramatic video coming up next. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. It has been just a few days since Donald Trump won the election, and many Americans are still processing the results. The campaign left deep divisions across the country, in some cases tearing apart relationships with family, with friends, and with neighbors. So how do we begin to repair them? CBS News senior national correspondent Jim Axelrod spoke with a man whose life work is to help us see the humanity in each other.
For many Americans celebrating, or those mired in despair, it's just too soon for big thoughts like how to bridge the American divide. But not for Dave Isay.
Write a prescription for the healing of America.
The only word that matters is proximity. We've got to stay in contact with people, even if we disagree with them vehemently.
Isay's got one of the more challenging jobs in America at the moment, trying to get us to take one small step closer.
Just remembering that whether you won or whether you lost, that the person on the other side is a human being.
That's the one small step.
That's the one small step.
What are your hopes for the next 4 years?
His nonprofit, StoryCorps, brings people from opposite ends of the political spectrum together for face-to-face conversations.
The only way to effectively lower the flame is to recommit to seeing the humanity in each other.
Yeah, again, it's scary and may make some people absolutely furious to hear me say that this week. We've got to take a step away from this abyss that we're standing on.
After a campaign where $11 billion was spent painting the other side as extreme, he's got some advice for us. Put down our phones, switch off the social media, and the divide might not be as unbridgeable as we think.
These are Kamala voters and these are Trump voters, and they come out friends at the end of this thing.
I mean, that sounds so.
I know. I know. It's crazy. It's hard for me to believe also, but it just is.
In July, we watched a liberal, Gary Sneed, and a conservative, Patrick Kleber, sit down and see the humanity in each other. Today, we asked them what their advice was for us post-election.
Patrick, if I hear you correctly, you're saying there's a lot more that unites us than divides us.
Yes, I think on an individual basis, yes.
No one is saying it's easy.
Patrick, you don't believe in gay marriage. Gary, you have a gay child. How do you work past that and stay connected?
That disagreement doesn't have to lead to complete fracturing and putting up walls between people.
Gary?
You know, I couldn't agree more with Patrick.
So in our fractured nation, as we grapple with how to move ahead, Dave Isay says looking beyond our neighbors' yard signs and into their heads and hearts is an act of patriotism.
It's the most courageous, patriotic thing you can do.
I can hear so many people
turning off the TV.
Yeah, they're in a raw state of mind and they're like, too soon.
If you're not ready this week, just keep it in your mind, maybe next week. And if not next week, next month. Don't give up.
Because giving up on seeing and hearing each other is the only way to ensure defeat. For Eye on America, I'm Jim Axelrod in New York.
An alarmingly close call on the side of a New York highway. Take a look at this video just coming into the newsroom. A road worker jumps out of the way just in time, seconds before a box truck plows into an active work zone. Wow. Yeah, everybody in the studio is like, whoa. It was caught on dash cam just north of Binghamton. If you look closely, you can see the worker's hard hat blows off his head. Almost in a way tries to wave the guy off. Thankfully, he's just like, what are you doing? Oh, not cool. Thankfully, folks, no one was hurt. All right, let's talk about football now. The New Orleans Saints may be on a 7-game losing streak, but perhaps messages of support from the Pope. That guy could turn things around for them. You think? I wonder if the Pope knows that the Creator has probably bigger fish to fry. But yeah, football. The Pontiff appears to have accidentally promoted the NFL team on his social media this week. Here's what we're laughing about. In a post to X yesterday, the Pope told his followers, quote, "We cannot become #Saints." With a frown, the team's logo automatically appears when you use that hashtag. So the Saints official X account replied to the post simply saying, "Amen." Laissez le bouton rouler. What do they say in New Orleans? Laissez le bon temps rouler. Let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore to let's look at the national forecast. Grant.
Hey, take it and run with it. No doubt about that. That's funny. Good stuff there. Hey, so speaking of New Orleans, no stranger to the tropics, and here we are sitting in the first week of November, and we're still talking about the tropics. Hurricane Raphael, now a Category 2 hurricane, though it did strengthen to a Category 3 hurricane once again overnight. The good news for the United States, at least, is that this system is going to stay in the Gulf of Mexico before dropping to the south and weakening as it heads towards the Bay of Campeche, still producing some gust concerns there along the Mexico coast. Meanwhile, we've got winter storm weather across Southern California or Southern Colorado, with pleasant weather now moving into the Midwest. Vlad, back over to you.
All right, Grant, thank you very much. See you Monday. It doesn't for me, but stay right where you are. After the break, Elizabeth Cook is live from San Francisco with all the breaking news from coast to coast. This is CBS News 24/7.